Welcome to the third video in section 4, titled Graphing Relations. In this video, we're going to tie several concepts together that we have learned over the last few sections. So in this example, we have to complete a table of values. We're going to create a relation, we're going to graph the relation, and we're going to use the relation to answer a question. So let's begin. It says the number of petals on a flower grows each week. So in week 1, how many petals do we have? I count 2 pink petals on the edge of the flower. In week 2, I count 3. In week 3, I count 4. Now we don't have the 4th week, but you might notice that each week 1 more petal grows. So that means in week 4, we would have 5 petals. Now there are a surprising number of examples in nature that exhibit some sort of mathematical pattern. Now here we're limiting our examples to linear relations, but you can certainly absorb more math in nature as you continue your math journey. Now we got to write a relation between the week number and the number of petals. So here is the table of values again. So whenever we create a relation, we always look to see what the output values, in this case the number of petals, increases by. So if we look at 2, 3, 4, 5, I notice that it just increases by 1. So we start off by saying that the number of petals, P, equals 1 times W, the week number. Now 1 times W is really just the same as W. So we can say P equals W. Now we got to see if we got to add or subtract a number onto this. So we always do that by plugging in a number from the table to see what we get. So let's just replace W with 1. If I replace W with 1, I simply have P equals 1. Now looking at the table, in week 1, I should have 2 petals. Now in my formula, I get 1, meaning I got to adjust my formula by adding 1 onto the equation. So we get the relation P equals W plus 1. Now we're going to draw a graph of the relation. So we always need to label our axes. On the bottom would be what's on the left side of the table of values, which is the week number. Up the side is always the output values, which is the number of petals. Now we should also give our graph a title. So you can call it something like the number of petals on a flower. So now to plot my first point, I'll start at the origin and I'll go over to week 1 and then go up to 2 petals. So the first point would be here. Then I'll go over to week 2 and then up to 3 petals, giving me this point. Then week 3 gives me 4 petals, which is right here, and week 4 gives me 5 petals. Now you can see that all of these points are in a straight line, meaning it's a linear relation. Now part D wants us to complete the graphs for weeks 5 to 7. So what do we notice in the graph here? If I go over 1 block, I go up 1 block, over 1, up 1, and so on. So for week 5, we follow that pattern. I will go over 1, up 1, put a point here. Go over 1, up 1 again for week 6, and then for week 7, go over 1, up 1, giving me this point. So again, you see that the points are linear, so it matches the relation in the table. For part E, it says, if this pattern continues, use the relation to determine how many petals are on the flower after week 12. So our relation that we created was P equals W plus 1. So for week 12, I'll replace W with 12, giving me 13. So I'll say that there are 13 petals after week 12. So that concludes this video. You can now move on to the last video in this lesson.